Well, my name is Kargl-Simard. I'm the president and CEO of Adventus Mining Corporation. Was on this show a few months ago, I think it was April of this year, giving an initial pitch on Adventus. So who are we? We're a copper gold development company focused on Ecuador, the exciting geology of Ecuador. We have what should be the next major mine to be built in Ecuador, which happens to be one of the most economic copper development projects in the world, called El Domo. Feasibility Study coming in October, ESIA submittal coming in October. Exciting stuff ahead of us. At the same time, we're exploring for new discoveries in Ecuador, both new VMS targets as well as large-scale copper gold porphyries.
Christian, welcome back. Good to see you again. Indeed, we saw you back in April, had a kind of romp through the project, and I'll put a link below to that interview as well. Just want to talk about some of the things that you've been up to since we spoke. I guess we better start with the positives, which is you've made a discovery, a new massive sulphide lens. And it's early days, but numbers look good.
Absolutely. So when we entered Ecuador in late 2017 with the Salazars on this Curipamba district, our view was, like everyone says, VMSs occur in clusters, there's district scale potential, but until you actually discover a second VMS lens, that's just a theory. We went in there with the view that airborne geophysics, which had never been done before, would be the holy grail of finding those additional VMS lenses. We identified 15 new targets. We started drilling for new VMS discovery in May of this year, and we hit almost immediately on this geophysical target called Agua Santa. About 6.5 meters, works out to be about 5.5% copper equivalent. That's the same grade as El Domo, around 60 meters down, and that's 5 kilometers away from El Domo. So brand new system right on the road to El Domo, and the rocks look really good.
So people come in and tell us about anomalies, they talk about targets, but very, very, very few of them ever get to talk about discoveries. You've got 2 now, you made the announcement, market doesn't care, your share price is down. What's going on?
This is extremely frustrating, I think, for the whole sector. Greenfields exploration is extremely difficult. I would bet, or my view is, on up and coming jurisdictions like Ecuador, your chances for greenfields discovery is 5%. So one of every 20 targets you drill is a discovery. If we're talking about more established areas, that could be as low as 1 to 2%. So normally a new discovery is a watershed moment. It's the excitement in the market. As you said, we made 2 discoveries this year. Stock goes up 5% the day of the discovery. Next day, it's down 8%. So then you start questioning, should you spend money on exploration? Does the market understand exploration? We have very high bars set by some explorers in their business, like Filo Mining, like Solaris, like SolGold. It seems like the market just wants to see 1 kilometer holes of 0.6% copper equivalent or better. And we have one of those targets within Curipamba within Adventus called Santiago. But bottom line is something has to change in this market.
Something's got to change. Because the commodity prices are doing a lot of heavy lifting for you, but people just aren't taking note of that. There's a real disconnect. Because so I'm talking about copper price specifically here, because your grades are solid. You've made 2 discoveries. Copper price is as high as it's been. What's the solution?
What's the solution is you can't beat yourself up. You hope to have cash in your treasury to live another day.
How much do you have?
We got 16 million US, and we have a real tangible value, and that's our El Domo feasibility study coming out in October with project financing, with other strategic alternatives underway. So that's going to backstop the value, and on that basis, we are extremely cheap. We're trading around 0.3 times net asset value for a real project that will start construction next year. Just need to push that to the side and keep on moving along.
But you told me you'd have the finance in place by July. You haven't.
Well, people that know me know I'm pretty proactive. And when you got what I say the most economic copper development project in the world, of course you want to push that as fast as you can to a construction decision. So earlier this year, we ran a process to select a project financier. We have a fantastic package that is advancing through the different stages of definitive agreements, etc. Couple things though on the timing. Number one, it is helpful to have final or near final economics in the feasibility study before you lock in such a package. So that is all coming together as we speak, very, very dynamic. Number two, there's the aspect of M&A. And certain acquirers have their own sources of capital, lines of credit, cash flow, and they don't want to have a project finance package tied to a project. But it's at a point in the life cycle of a company like ourselves, we do have a decision point. So we can wait a few months to determine if there's an M&A transaction that makes sense. But at a certain point, you have to get on your own execution strategy plan. And for us, that's January of next year.
Okay, so
project financing package is advancing. We haven't announced it yet. We're getting it to a point where we can press go with just the signature over the next few weeks here. And then we'll determine when we sign it or not later this year.
Okay, so there's two things going on here. One, which is being in control of your own destiny and putting a finance package together, which you've put together. And the second is M&A. You're suggesting you're not looking at buying something, you're looking at potentially selling the company. Is that what I'm hearing?
I would say most junior mining companies, if they've got an attractive asset like us, have to look at M&A as a potential option for the company. An exit to a producer likely that has the construction team, all infrastructure in place, and it's just additive to them going forward. And they're trading probably at 0.8, 0.9, 1 times NAV, and so they can end up paying a nice premium for an asset like El Domo. So we have several groups under CA. They're waiting for the same information that the project financier is waiting for, and there's a natural point to roll up your sleeves on this asset over the next few months from an M&A perspective. So a sale of asset.
So sale of asset, not company, right? So I want to be clear.
That whether it becomes a sale of Adventus or a sale of the asset, that's a tax decision, but whatever's best for the shareholders.
Okay, so you're selling, not buying. Interesting. Have you told Salazar?
Well, Salazars can make their own decisions, but we work very closely with them, and they're fully aware of what's on the table, and there's great alignment there.
Okay, so a conversation to be had. Right. Let's say, okay, you will come to us because there's a bunch of conversations going on at the moment. You'll come to shareholders and say, here are some options on the table. We're making a recommendation as to one of these. That's potentially what could happen next.
I would say that come end of this year, if you see an M&A transaction, our board has made a decision that that's a better route than doing a project finance package. If you see the project finance package, that's because we haven't found a solution not a solution, but an option from an M&A perspective that makes sense.
Right. So you haven't been able to find something which you think stacks up. So what were the options, or what are the options that you're looking at in terms of standalone if you wanted to do this yourself? And why is the pushback from the market saying, actually, no, we're going to charge you a little bit more than you want?
So I'll take you through the thought process.
Yeah.
This asset at spot pricing has a net asset value of around $3 a share Canadian, net to Adventus. We're currently trading at 87 cents. Upon completion of construction and re-rating as a producer, if we had the same metals price deck, you would be talking about $3.50 to $4 a share, assuming everything works as planned. So that's the advantage of or the thought process of going it alone. At the same time, we know building mines is the most difficult thing to do on this planet. So if you got an offer in the call it $1.75, $2 range for just Curipamba, that's something you have to consider. Difficult to do when you're trading at 87 cents.
Yeah, these are difficult conversations. Well, both options are difficult at 87 cents because you don't necessarily have the mine building team on board today. You'd have to go and find them, get them up to speed, finance them, and obviously put the finance together, for the total package. So that's not appealing. We've been working
on that.
Is that not appealing?
That's a big part of what the management team is working on right now is building the execution plan, identifying the people to fit the key roles, and there's a big financial commitment that comes along with that. So if you're going to go down the project finance route, that means you're indicating you're going to build your own team, and that train's left the station. Doesn't mean you can't do M&A after that, but you're starting to do the heavy lifting, starting to be a bigger break fee if an M&A transaction came along, etc. And we want to be in construction by October 2022.
Do you think if you'd had this conversation this time last year, you'd have got a better reception than now? See, the market's come off a bit. I think some of the institutions have cooled a little bit. A lot of capital's been deployed. Is it just a timing issue?
Last year, we raised $38 million at $1.27 a share. We had an institutional roster there of close to 40. We've lost quite a few of them. We've gained a few. There was definitely an expectation on the exploration side of things to make a major new discovery. Well, we made two, as we discussed. That wasn't sufficient enough for the market to react, and investors have a, I don't want to say ADD, but they're expecting share price performance, and they're not going to wait just for the feasibility study to come. So it's been disappointing. We've had millions of shares of selling here this summer from multiple institutions, but we've been executing on the business plan. We have the feasibility study on track, the ESA on track. We have been drilling all of our projects. We're hopeful to have a new discovery in all three projects by the time we have to go back to market. What can I say?
Well, I don't know, Christian, because you're known as a good marketeer, a good markets guy. You've got some big players in country, the Solgols, the Philos in country. The grades that you're putting out in the headlines are good. Have you not been able? And VMS suggests real scale to this. So, what was the moment, or what are the things that you think has caused institutions to flock away somewhere else? Is it just the market, or is it something that you've done or not done?
We are in the trough of the Lassonde curve, for those that understand that. So we're in the most boring part of the life cycle of a mining company, where we're spending big money, but we're not delivering what would appear to the market as value add activities. That all is culminated into the feasibility study and hopefully a re-rating based on an advancement of the project. But then the first question people ask is, how are you going to finance that? That's why we have the financing solution in place. And I think the market will be very surprised in how little dilution, equity dilution, is required to build this project. This is now a 12-month waiting process for that to come out, but on plan. Lots has happened over the 12 months, as you mentioned. Market dynamics. Are we inflation, deflation? Is there going to be another wave of COVID? And then there's the exploration side of things. As mentioned in the three projects, there might have been higher expectations in the market, so I've got to balance that, of course. So in my view, the real issue in terms of bringing new institutions on is, why buy now rather than just wait for the feasibility study in the fall, and then I can review that study and determine if I should buy then or not, with views of what catalysts after that. And I've got some very astute existing investors that have asked that question. And the answer to that question being solely on valuation doesn't work in this market. There's lots of cheap things out there. So you really need to try to prove that you've got a viable strategy and you've got a project that can be financed or has viable M&A, and then becomes a trust issue on the CEO, on the company kind of delivering on the various aspects. So I make my case, and we've got decent buying, but decent selling right now. And I guess the truth will be in the studies that come out in the fall.
Well, the market's expectations high because you set them high. So you're good markets, you're a good front guy, really good markets guy. But did you oversell it? I mean, would you do anything differently?
Absolutely not. We did a very large financing last year in relation to the market cap. But that set the path to de-risking the company and being in a position to build a fantastic mine, and also weather the potential storm of the Ecuadorian elections, which turned out to be quite favorable. It also allowed us to drill multiple targets for new discovery. So did we take too much? Some people might say that. I think it de-risked the company for the future, as mentioned. Would I do anything different? Well, 25 of the 38 million we raised was going to go to the feasibility study in the ESIA. That's on budget, on track. That's your classic Lassonde curve, boring activity. Then when you add on fees and G&A, or you subtract that from the 38 million, you're left with call it $7-8 million for exploration, and we've been spending that. And people need to understand exploration is a roll of the dice. It's very, very high risk, and we made 2 discoveries. So would I have done anything different? No. We're exactly on track. We've had some extra wins along the way, monetizing some non-core assets, buying part of our construction camp, etc. So no, I wouldn't have changed anything.
If I look at Bramaderos, the Sunstone guys, the Aussies, they've kind of hit sort of 350 meters of reasonably interesting mineralization. Their share price has gone through the roof. So it makes me think there's nothing wrong with Ecuador, or at least the Aussies don't think there's anything wrong with Ecuador. You talked about obviously the elections being sorted out, and President Lasso making some quite positive noises about the importance of mining to the country. Do you feel that people in North America have not understood that they are still giving you the Ecuador discount? I mean, I'm trying to understand this, because if I look at 115 million market cap, you seem to be valued on probably just El Domo, nothing for Pahili, nothing for Santiago, nothing on exploration. I mean, would you agree with that, first of all? Well,
we don't need to be valued on Pahili and Santiago. Like you say, just on Curipamba, and we're trading at 0.3 times net asset value. That's just bonus to the story. There is definitely a difference in the market backdrop between Australia and Canada. Almost all of our Australian investors have left the story because of the expectation of quick returns. It wasn't really congruent, I guess, with our longer-term strategy. I don't think there's an Ecuadorian discount right now. Definitely, Solaris has been, if not the best, kind of top 3 best performing base metal stocks in the world in Ecuador. It's probably more a function of where we are in the development of the project and that Lassonde curve trough. It's not an issue of not having institutions on the register. We've got about 35 still on the register. We've got arguably one of the best registers for junior mining. When you have, though, large institutions that want to exit the story in the middle of the summer, there are only limited buyers out there. And so there can be a disconnect between the buying and selling, and that's where you get selling off of the share price, and then selling can lead to more selling. For example, on Friday, we were the second highest volume traded mining company in the TSX. And we've had multiple insiders buying here the last few months, and the stock still has been going down.
Must be tough to wrap your head around.
The first lesson you learn when you run a junior mining company is you need to have thick skin. Don't get the market trading to get you all upset. It's just a reality. 6 months from now, those selling may wish they didn't sell.
Right. So given that exploration is not being rewarded at that moment, I think that is a common narrative. And there's definitely been the last 6 weeks have been 8 weeks have been quite painful for mining equities. Do you think this thing gets moving again? Do you just sit back and get on with the business of running your company? You got $16 million, and so in a meaningful way, you can kind of crack on at whatever speed you choose. You've got an M&A discussions going on. So maybe you're even less incentivized to do too much at the moment. I mean, how should we look in on the company and how it's behaving?
We've never been busier at Adventus. It's heads down, deliver the feasibility study, deliver the ESAA. We've got a drill rig turning a new discovery. We've got a drill rig at our Santiago project. We're developing the next target at the Pahili for discovery. So exploration of 3 projects and this big outcome coming in October. I've lined up to $250 million US of project finance. That's 100% of the capex we need to get to commercial production, and we've got M&A discussions. It couldn't be a better dynamic for the market cap and size of company we are today. Forget what the market's looking at right now or trading at. We will re-rate going into the fall, and it's a question of which path we're going to take. Construction on our own or sale of the company.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so 250 million you've got lined up, but you think it's too expensive. Right, that's what you said earlier. And you've got conversations going on. So you mentioned a couple of things which I did want to ask about earlier, which is obviously Pahili. There's a release came out. You kind of clipped the edge of something there. You're not quite sure. How much more drilling are you going to be doing on that before the feasibility study comes out?
Oh, you mean on Agua Santa discovery in the Curipamba district?
No, I mean the Pahili project.
The Pahili project is a porphyry project which surrounds Southern Copper. Southern Copper is in the midst of a feasibility study on a 1 billion ton porphyry project. So last time we spoke, we had just made a new discovery. Like I think you're suggesting, we clipped an overprinting scar and mineralization on the porphyry. We've been working on following up that with low-cost test pitting, but also grooming the next porphyry targets within that district. There are 18 that we've identified through airborne geophysics. And there's one that looks really good called the Pato target. It's a copper-gold porphyry, large surface showing. So the geochemistry and the test pitting has confirmed the geophysics. It will be drill ready in October. The question is when we're going to drill that, and that the current thinking is drilling early next year, but based on the final target generation work over the next month and a half, we may have a surprise in October.
A surprise as in you may go early on the drilling, or a surprise as in, right, okay.
Yes. But
you're not drilling at the moment. Is this also probably because you feel exploration is not being rewarded, so why bother? Why spend the money?
No, it's easy to say that, but the reality is we're in Ecuador to make major new discoveries, and one day you might show up with a kilometer 0.6% copper equivalent, and then you're $5 a share. We do need to set aside a reasonable portion of our treasury. I think last time we talked about 15% of our treasury for exploration. We're going to continue to do that with surgical drill programs on well put together targets. Definitely not an expectation in the market right now. I'm not talking about kind of big success, but we will continue to run these small programs on these targets, and one of them is going to hit.
Okay. And what about Santiago? You said you've got a drill there. Are you actually drilling?
Yeah, we moved a drill there to the project after years of social consultation with local communities. We have made good progress there. We are continuing to work on communities that are outside of the project area, so 50, 100 kilometers away, which are more indigenous. That's going to take a little bit more work, but we are in the field, and we do plan to drill 3,000 meters this year.
Okay, you plan to, but do you need to resolve the local issues first to be able to?
It is prudent to continue the community relations activities, especially with the indigenous population. Okay. And we're making good inroads there too, but for the size of this prize, it's best to get it right.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, Christian, that's a sort of solid update. So I think big message for me, I thought I was going to be talking about was the new VMS discovery, but it seems to be M&A, as in selling asset or company, maybe the big topic.
It's a new narrative, that's for sure. We didn't talk about it last time, but I think it is an exciting opportunity. I don't think investors really buy for M&A and solely M&A, but to have that on the table to add to the optionality with everything else, I think is interesting. And I think the Lasso election and his new policies have been very supportive for companies to start looking for projects in Ecuador, and let's say the next mine in Ecuador. Lasso just recently, just a few weeks ago, signed a decree fast-tracking mining projects at our stage, but also earlier stage projects, making mining a real priority of his mandate. And he is declaring our project, as well as a few others, a project of national interest. So basically setting up a task force for each of those projects to deal with issues that might arise during his term. He set out a goal of $2 billion of spending in mining over the next 4 years. You only get there if you start building some mines, or if new mine builds are part of that. We're the next one. So there's definitely very good discussions having been had, not only with Lasso, but all ministers, to make sure our project stays in the fast track. And those are discussions we can share with M&A groups as well.
Okay, so I'm just going to be clear. I want to leave this conversation be 100% clear about what's been said here. You're talking M&A, and it's a nice option to have on the table. Are you talking M&A just to get people to start paying attention to the story, because the exploration's not doing it, and you make an announcement like a second discovery? Like I say, those are rare as hen's teeth, and no one's paying any attention. I mean, where should we be looking?
Yeah, I mentioned M&A because some investors are probably wondering, where's the project finance package? And it's an honest response to a dynamic company like Adventus is. So I'm adding it to the equation along with the project finance package and everything else going on. I guess this call, maybe I sounded frustrated or down because of the lack of response from exploration. I need to talk through that, though. I think it's important to hear where my head is at, and why our share price is where it is, and maybe some investors have overlooked some pretty interesting discoveries. Certainly, making a new discovery in the Curipamba district near El Domo is very strategic, especially from an M&A perspective. We now potentially have a real track to get to 20, 30, 40 million tons of VMS, which grows the potential acquirer universe from $1 billion producers to potentially $3, $4, $5 billion producers. And that's material. Or on an M&A transaction, rather than paying the low end of the range, you pay the higher end of the range because of that potential. So that hasn't been recognized in the market, but it definitely has been recognized by corporates that are looking at the company.